I opened the storage room behind our house and froze when I saw my wife kissing our neighbor right there, between the stacked cardboard boxes. My hands were shaking, but I quietly locked the door from the outside. My heart was pounding as I listened through the crack, hearing them panic and pound on the door. Then I pulled out my phone and called his wife. I didn't cry. I only said one sentence: "Come here right now, and bring the key to your house." If you want to hear what happened next, and how I turned the whole situation around, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part. The day started the way most of my days did. Too early, too loud, and already asking me for more than I had. I'd been on shift since before sunrise. By the time I pulled into our driveway in the Atlanta suburbs, my shoulders felt like sandbags and my uniform clung to my back. I walked inside and found my son, Marcus, on the couch with his math book open and his headphones half off one ear. "Hey, Dad," he said without looking up. "Hey, you eat?" "Yeah, Mom made pasta." That was Tiana. She could cook and smile and keep the house looking like a magazine while the real mess stayed tucked behind her eyes. She was in the kitchen rinsing a plate when I came in. She leaned up to kiss my cheek like she always did. Her lips felt normal. That's what scared me later, how normal it all felt. "You're late," she said. "Had a call." "You always have a call." I let it slide. I'd made a habit of swallowing things before they turned into arguments. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because I cared too much. A man learns early what storms cost, and I'd been trying to keep this house calm for my boy. After I showered, I sat at the table while Marcus did homework. Tiana scrolled on her phone, laughing at something only she could see. My mother-in-law, Denise, called on speaker to ask about a doctor appointment. My father-in-law chimed in from the background, making jokes. "Malik, you still at work?" he said. "Just got home," I answered. "Good. You know we need you. A real man handles things." Tiana giggled like it was harmless. Then Ryan's name came up, like it had been coming up a lot lately. "Ryan said he might stop by tomorrow," Denise said. "Such a nice neighbor." Tiana waved her hand. "He's been helping with little stuff. I gave him the storage key so he can grab his tools if he needs them." I looked up from my plate. "You gave him what?" She didn't even blink. "The storage key. He said it was easier than knocking every time. It's just the back room." Denise laughed. "Oh, Malik, don't be so tight. A good husband is generous. You black men always so serious." The words landed heavy, even wrapped in her little laugh. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't take the bait. Marcus was right there. I didn't want him hearing his father fighting over something that would sound petty to a kid. So I did what I'd been doing for years. I nodded. I let it pass. Later, Marcus came into the kitchen with a worried look. "Dad, the water's kinda weak again." I rubbed my eyes. The last thing I wanted was to deal with plumbing after a shift, but I stood up anyway. "I'll check the pump." Tiana didn't offer to help. She just said, "Okay, babe," like it was settled. I grabbed my shoes and stepped outside. The air had that Georgia chill that sneaks in at night. I walked past the fence line toward the small storage room behind the house, thinking about the spare pump we kept in there. I kept my hand in my jacket pocket, already picturing the toolbox, already counting the hours of sleep I was losing. The storage door creaked when I opened it. I stopped. My brain couldn't name what I was seeing fast enough. Tiana's hair was loose. Ryan's hands were on her waist. Their mouths were together like they'd done it before. Between stacked cardboard boxes, an old Christmas tree, and a broken chair, my wife was pressed against the man who'd waved at me across the street last weekend. No sound came out of me. Not a shout, not even a curse. My fingers went numb, but they still worked. I pulled the door closed slowly, like I was putting something away that I didn't want to touch. Then I turned the key. The lock clicked. That small click was the loudest thing in my life. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the pounding started. "Malik!" Tiana's voice broke like glass. "Malik, open the door!" Ryan's voice came right after, rough and angry. "What the hell is wrong with you? Open it!" I leaned my shoulder against the wall beside the door. My heart hit hard against my ribs, like it was trying to escape. I stared at the key in my hand, listening to them scramble inside, hearing them press against the wood like it might give. Tiana kept calling my name, over and over, like saying it enough times would turn this back into the version of my life she wanted. My hand shook once. I tightened my grip until the shaking stopped, and I didn't move. The pounding didn't stop. It got louder, sharper, like they thought noise could force me to open that door. "Malik, please," Tiana cried. "Please, baby, don't do this." Ryan's fist hit the wood again. "You're gonna regret this." My mouth tasted like metal. I stared at the key in my hand, then at my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen like it had a mind of its own. I didn't scroll. I didn't think. I tapped the contact I'd seen 100 times at block parties and neighborhood cookouts. Ryan's wife. The line rang, once, twice. Then a sleepy voice answered. "Hello?" I kept my voice steady. It came out lower than usual, almost flat. "Come here right now, and bring the key to your house." Silence on the other end. "Malik? What's going on? Just come." I ended the call before I could hear anything else. Not because I was being cruel, because if I stayed on the line, the sound of her confusion would crack something open in me, and I couldn't afford to fall apart in my own backyard. My hand still trembled, so I shoved the phone into my pocket and walked away from the storage door. Each step felt wrong, like my body expected me to run, to shout, to do the kind of things men do in movies. Instead, I moved like I was heading to check the mailbox. Cold air hit my face as soon as I reached the driveway. It wasn't a dramatic chill, just enough to make me blink and remember where I was. I swallowed hard and looked toward the house. The upstairs window was dark. Marcus was asleep. He had school in the morning, a math test, a normal kid life that depended on me not turning this into a circus. I rubbed the heel of my hand over my mouth, then forced my shoulders down. A fire captain learns how to breathe when everything around him is chaos. That training didn't stop working just because the fire was in my own home. Behind me, Tiana kept pleading. "Please, Malik, don't call anybody. Let me explain." Ryan switched tactics. "Man, open the door. We can talk. We can handle this like men." That line almost made me laugh. Almost. The same guy who was pressed against my wife 5 minutes ago now wanted to talk like men. Lights flicked on across the street. A porch light here, a kitchen light there. Curtains moved. People in this neighborhood didn't mind their business when something sounded off. I walked a few steps toward the street, then raised my voice. Not angry, not shaking. Calm. Official. "Everything's fine," I called out. "I heard something in the back. Thought someone broke in." It wasn't a lie, not really. Something had broken into my life, and I was dealing with it. A neighbor's door opened. Somebody shouted back. "You good, Malik?" "Yeah," I answered. "Got it handled." My tone did the work. In my uniform, even off-duty, people trusted me. They backed off because they thought I was doing my job. I slipped behind my SUV, out of the line of sight from the street, and opened my voice recorder. 1 tap. The little timer started counting. Then I checked the time. Every second mattered now, not for revenge, for control. The pounding from inside the storage room changed. It didn't sound like 2 people fighting to get out anymore. It sounded like 2 people turning on each other. "Why did you do that?" Tiana hissed through the door. "You said you had it under control," Ryan snapped back, his voice tight. "Shut up. You're the one who got sloppy. Don't talk to me like that. You think I'm scared of him? I'm scared of my wife." That last part hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was funny, because it meant he knew exactly what he was risking. He did it anyway. My knuckles whitened around my phone. I kept recording. I didn't move. I didn't shout through the door. I let them talk. Tiana's sobbing shifted into anger. "You told me you loved me," Ryan scoffed. "I told you what you wanted to hear." I closed my eyes for half a second, then opened them again. The street was quiet now, but the house felt like it was holding its breath. I stayed by my SUV, listening to the voices inside the storage room crack and collide, waiting for the sound of tires on gravel that would tell me Ryan's wife had arrived. The next morning, I drove Marcus to school like nothing had happened. He talked about his math test and a kid on the basketball team who kept missing practice. I nodded at the right times, kept my hands steady on the steering wheel, and watched the clock like I always did. At the drop-off line, he leaned out the door. "Love you, Dad." "Love you too," I said. He shut the door and jogged toward the building, backpack bouncing. I waited until he disappeared inside before I pulled away. Home Depot was 10 minutes from the school. I parked, grabbed a cart, and walked through the aisles like a man on a list. New lock, security camera, extra batteries, a small fireproof box for paperwork. I didn't want to be there, but I needed to do something my hands could understand. My phone buzzed while I was comparing two different deadbolts. It was Shane, one of my guys at the station. "Morning, Cap," he said. His voice was casual, but I heard the curiosity under it. "Everything good over there?" "Yeah," I answered. "You sure? Folks were talking. Said they heard a commotion in your neighborhood last night." So it had started. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't even raised my voice. Still, Atlanta suburbs moved on whisper and porch light. "Probably kids," I said. "You know how it is." He paused. "All right, just checking. You need anything, I got you." "I'm good," I told him, and I meant it the way men like me mean it. Not, "I'm fine," more like, "I'm still standing." I ended the call and tossed the lock into the cart. My throat felt tight, but I kept moving. A couple in the next aisle argued about paint samples. Somebody's toddler screamed because they wanted candy. The world stayed normal while mine didn't. At checkout, the cashier smiled and asked if I was fixing up the house. I said yes because it was easier than explaining I was rebuilding my life one bolt at a time. Once I got to my SUV, I sat in the driver's seat and didn't start the engine. I opened my banking app instead. I told myself I was checking for routine bills, just making sure nothing bounced. The first thing I saw made my stomach drop. A transfer I didn't recognize. Not huge, but enough to make my eyes narrow. Then another. Same week, different amount. The memo line didn't help. A payment to a site I'd never used. A subscription under my name. A charge that looked like an online electronics store. My brain tried to protect me. Maybe I forgot. Maybe Tiana handled it. Maybe it's one of Marcus's school things. But the dates didn't line up. The names didn't fit. And I knew my own spending habits. I didn't buy anything without thinking it through twice. I scrolled further. My jaw clenched. A few transactions were pending. New ones. Fresh ones. Then a notification popped up in my email. Credit inquiry detected. I stared at the subject line like it was written in another language. My heart beat once, hard, then settled into something colder. I tapped the email. It was from a credit monitoring service I barely remembered signing up for years ago. The message was clean and simple. Someone had checked my credit. I didn't apply for anything. Not a car. Not a card. Not a loan. My hand moved before my thoughts caught up. I called the bank. The automated voice asked for my last 4 digits. I gave them. It asked me to verify my address. I did. Then I waited, listening to hold music that felt insulting for a moment like this. A woman finally came on the line. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" "I need to know who ran a credit check under my name," I said, "and I need to see any new accounts or applications tied to me." There was a pause while she pulled up my file. "Sir, I'm seeing an inquiry from yesterday," she said. "Do you recognize it?" "No." "All right, let's take a few steps," she replied, switching into a careful tone. "I'm going to recommend you request your full credit report and place a freeze. I can also help you flag any suspicious activity." Suspicious activity, like my life hadn't already been flagged. I listened, answered her questions, followed the process. When she told me to write down the case number, I did it without arguing. When she said to check all 3 bureaus, I typed it into my notes. By the time I hung up, my cart was still in the back seat, and my hands were resting on the steering wheel, steady again. I took screenshots of everything. Every transfer, every charge, every email. I saved them to a folder and sent a copy to a second address only I controlled. Going home felt like walking back into a building I already knew was burning, so I didn't. I started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove to a small coffee shop in Midtown. I ordered a black coffee, sat in the corner with my phone and my receipts, and stared at my own name on that credit alert like it belonged to someone else. My coffee had gone cold by the time I drove back. I left the Home Depot bag in the passenger seat and kept my phone face down. The closer I got to my street, the more my chest tightened, not from fear, but from the thought of Marcus walking into a house filled with adults, pretending nothing had happened. 2 cars were already in my driveway when I pulled in. Denise's white sedan, Harold's pickup. Of course. I stepped out, shut my door, and stood there a second with my hand on the roof of the SUV. The house looked the same as always. Curtains drawn, porch light off. Quiet. Like yesterday didn't exist. Inside, the air smelled like cleaning spray. Tiana had been busy. No surprise there. She was good at wiping down surfaces. She'd probably wipe down her own guilt too, if she could. Denise sat on my couch like it belonged to her. Harold leaned back in the recliner with his arms crossed. Tiana stood in the middle of the room with red eyes and a tissue in her hand, like she'd been waiting for an audience. The moment she saw me, she dropped to her knees. Not gently, dramatically. She grabbed my thigh and held on. "Malik, please," she choked out. "Don't do this. Don't throw away our family." I didn't step back. I didn't pull her off. I just looked down at her hands on my leg and waited for my body to stop wanting to react. Denise jumped in immediately. "Look at her," she said, pointing like I was the one who caused the scene. "She's sick with regret. You're going to punish her like this?" Harold shook his head slow. "Man to man," he started. "What happens in a marriage stays in a marriage. You don't make a spectacle. You got a child in the house." The word child made my eyes move. Marcus stood halfway up the stairs, one hand on the railing. He wasn't crying. He wasn't angry. He just looked smaller than he had that morning, like he'd heard too much and didn't know where to put it. Our eyes met for a second. Then he looked away, like he was ashamed to even watch. That was the part that cut me. Not the cheating, not the storage room, not even the credit inquiry. This, my son learning that grown people could twist truth until the wrong person looked guilty. Tiana squeezed my leg harder. "I made a mistake," she said. "I was lonely, Malik. You're always gone. You're always so cold." I kept my voice level. "Get up." She blinked, like she wasn't expecting that tone. Denise scoffed. "See? Cold. No heart. That's why she—" "Don't finish that sentence," I said. It came out quiet but sharp enough to make her pause. Tiana stood slowly, wiping her face, then tried something new. She pointed at my pocket. "Let me see your phone." I didn't move. "Let me see it," she repeated louder. "If you're so innocent, show them. Show my parents you're not hiding anything." Harold sat forward. "That's fair," he said. "If you want to act like she's the only one wrong, then put your cards on the table." Tiana nodded quickly, tears still on her cheeks. "Exactly. Malik could have someone too," she said, looking at her parents like she needed their approval. "He's always secretive. He's always texting. He thinks he's better than everybody. Maybe he's not as perfect as he wants you to believe." I stared at her, not because the accusation scared me, because of how easily she reached for it, how quickly she tried to flip the story. She wasn't just trying to survive. She was trying to make me the villain so she could stay comfortable. My hand slid into my pocket, not for my phone, but for my keys. "Marcus," I said, without looking away from Tiana, "go to your room." He hesitated. "Now," I repeated. His footsteps moved up the stairs, slow and careful, like he didn't want to make noise. Denise opened her mouth again, ready to scold me. I didn't give her the chance. I turned, walked straight through the kitchen, and headed for the garage. The door shut behind me with a soft click. My car sat there in the dim, quiet space. I opened the driver's side door, tossed my Home Depot bag onto the seat, and locked the car with the remote. The beep sounded small, regular, like any other day. I leaned against the doorframe and finally let one thought settle in without fighting it. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. They were already building a story where I deserved it, and if I let them, they'd make sure everyone believed it. I left through the side door of the garage and drove without a plan until Midtown signs started showing up. My hands stayed steady on the wheel, but my mind kept trying to drag me back into that living room. Tiana crying, her parents judging, Marcus standing on the stairs like he didn't belong in his own home. Ava's diner sat on a corner off Ponce, the kind of place with strong coffee and no patience for excuses. I'd met her through a community fire safety program a few years back. She'd helped coordinate paperwork, kept people organized, and didn't let anyone talk her into nonsense. When I texted her, she replied with a single line, "Come now." She walked in a minute after I did, coat still on, hair pulled back, eyes already scanning me like she was assessing damage. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. "I haven't." She slid into the booth and didn't ask how I was feeling. She didn't reach for my hand. She went straight for the one thing that mattered. "Do you have proof?" she asked. "Or are you planning to die on pride?" That hit harder than sympathy would have. It forced me to sit up. "I have audio," I said. "I have screenshots, credit inquiry, transfers." Ava nodded once, like she expected it. "Good, because if you go home and start yelling, she'll call you abusive. If you touch him, she'll call you violent. If you stay quiet, they'll rewrite you as the villain. So we're not doing feelings, we're doing steps." She pulled a small notebook from her bag and flipped it open. "First, freeze your credit, all 3 bureaus, today, not tomorrow." "Already started," I said. "Good. Next, change every password tied to money. Bank, email, phone carrier, anything she can reset with security questions." I nodded, staring at the table as she spoke. It felt strange, turning my marriage into a checklist. Still, the structure helped. It gave my brain something to hold on to. "Separate funds," she continued. "Open an account she can't touch. Direct deposit there. Keep receipts for every shared bill you still pay. Don't let them claim you abandon your responsibilities." The waitress dropped off coffee. I didn't add sugar. Ava leaned forward. "If there's even a hint she used your identity, you report it. Doesn't matter if she's your wife." I looked up. "That's a big move." "So is stealing a man's name," she said flat. "Marriage doesn't give someone permission to wreck your credit." My phone buzzed on the table. A message from Shane. "You okay, Cap?" Then another vibration. This one from a neighborhood group chat I hadn't opened in months. Someone had posted a vague comment about toxic men and control. No names, but enough for people to connect the dots. Under it, Tiana's profile picture showed a fresh quote. "Sometimes the person who loves you most hurts you the worst." My jaw tightened. Ava watched my face change. "She's starting," she said. I set the phone down and pulled my laptop out of my bag. Ava slid her notebook toward me and pointed at the first line. "Freeze credit, confirm alerts, save everything." I opened my browser, logged in, and started typing, while across the table, Ava sipped her coffee like we were planning a move-out date instead of dismantling the life I'd built. I carried my laptop back into the house after midnight and didn't bother going upstairs. The guest room had turned into storage years ago, so I made the small office my base. I pulled out a spare pillow from the closet, laid a blanket on the couch, and plugged my phone in like I was settling in for a long shift. Tiana stayed upstairs. No footsteps, no knock. She wanted space so she could claim she was afraid of me later. Fine. The next morning, I moved with purpose, not anger, purpose. On the way back from dropping Marcus off, I stopped at Walmart and bought a large plastic bin with a locking lid. I added a pack of folders, a hole punch, binder clips, and 2 reams of paper. It looked like supplies for a school project. It was really the start of my exit plan. At home, I set the bin on the kitchen table and started printing. Bank statements, email confirmations, screenshots of transactions I didn't authorize, credit alerts, text messages. Every piece of paper made the situation more real and somehow less personal. A fire isn't a feeling, it's a set of facts. Heat, fuel, oxygen. You identify the source and you cut it off. That was how I worked now. I called the bank again and moved my direct deposit. I opened an account in my name only, set up alerts for every transfer over $50, and added 2-step verification to every login. Then I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus, the same way Ava told me. No delays, no bargaining with myself. After that, I requested my full credit reports. I didn't want to see what I suspected. Still, I needed proof. Tiana floated around the house like a ghost with a phone. She spoke softly when Marcus was in the room. She posted online when he wasn't. I caught a glimpse of one status while she stood at the sink. Some people don't know what they have until they lose it. No names, no details, just enough to make her look wounded. A neighbor texted me that afternoon. "Hey man, you and Tiana okay?" I left it on red. That evening, I installed the camera in the garage and another one outside, angled toward the driveway. I didn't tell Tiana. I didn't need her permission to protect my own property. The cameras weren't there to spy on her. They were there to stop the story from being rewritten when no one was watching. My first night on the office couch, Sleep came in pieces. I'd doze off, then wake up with my mind racing. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email notification. Password changed successfully, for a service I didn't recognize. I sat up, wiped my face with both hands, and checked the details. The account was tied to an old email address Tiana used for shared bills. Someone had tried to reset it. I changed the password again. I updated the recovery options. I added my number. Then I logged out and locked it down. 10 minutes later, a text came in from an unknown number. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be. No greeting, no signature, just a warning. I stared at it for a long time, then took a screenshot and saved it to the same folder as the rest. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I didn't dial. If Ryan wanted to play games, he could do it with a lawyer on the line. 2 nights later, I spotted a car parked at the end of the street. Not one I recognized. It sat there with the engine running for a while, then rolled away slow. The next night, it came back. I didn't go outside. I didn't confront anyone. I opened my camera feed, zoomed in as much as the app allowed, and took a photo of the license plate. Then I wrote the number down on paper and slid it into my bin. Ava was the only person I told. "You think it's him?" she asked. "I think someone wants me nervous," I said. "Then don't give them that," she replied. "Keep collecting." Around midnight, I grabbed my keys and walked out to the SUV. I didn't wake Marcus. I didn't leave a note for Tiana. I just drove. I-75 was almost empty, and the city lights blurred in the distance. I kept both hands on the wheel, steady and firm, the way I did when I had a crew counting on me. My mind felt blank for the first time in days. No arguing, no pleading, no explaining. Just me, the road, and the quiet work of staying in control. My phone rang while I was tightening a bolt on the new lock. I wiped my hands on my jeans and answered without looking at the screen. "Mr. Johnson?" a woman asked. "Speaking. This is Ms. Holloway, assistant principal at Marcus's school. I'm calling because there was an incident today." My stomach sank before she even explained. School calls never meant good news. "Is he hurt?" I asked. "He's okay," she said quickly. "But there was a fight. Marcus pushed another student, and the other student swung back. We separated them right away." I closed my eyes for a second. "Why?" I asked. There was a pause, the kind adults take when they're trying to choose words that won't make a situation worse. "The other student made a comment about your family," she said. "It was inappropriate. It's something the kids heard from adults." My grip tightened on the phone. "What comment?" She exhaled. "He said, 'Your mom's sleeping with the neighbor.'" My mouth went dry. I didn't answer right away because if I did, my voice might crack. I stared at the garage floor like it had the answer to how a grown man protects his kid from a world that's eager to humiliate him. "I'm on my way," I said. At the school, Marcus sat in a small office chair with his arms crossed and his eyes locked on the carpet. His lip was split. A faint redness showed on his cheek. He looked older and younger at the same time. I sat beside him and kept my voice calm. "You all right?" He shrugged, but his shoulders trembled. "He said it like it was funny," Marcus muttered, "like everybody already knew." I didn't ask which kid. I didn't ask who told him. I already knew how rumors moved. They spread because people liked the taste of other people's pain. "You can't put your hands on people," I said. Marcus's eyes finally came up. "So what am I supposed to do?" he snapped. "Just let them talk about mom like that? About us?" That us landed hard. He wasn't defending Tiana. He was defending the only thing he knew, his home, his name, his place in the world. I nodded once. "You walk away," I said. "And you come to me. You don't carry it alone." He swallowed, and his face softened just enough to show he wanted to believe me. When we got home, Tiana rushed out like she'd been waiting at the door. "Oh, my baby," she cried, pulling Marcus into her arms, loud enough for the whole street to hear if the windows were open. "Look what they did to you." Marcus didn't hug her back. He stood stiff, eyes darting toward me like he didn't know whose side he was on anymore. Tiana turned her tearful face to me. "See what you're doing?" she said, voice shaking. "You're tearing this family apart. Now our son's suffering because of you." I didn't argue. I walked past her into the kitchen, put my keys on the counter, and grabbed a clean towel for Marcus. Denise and Harold were already there again, sitting, watching, like my living room was a courtroom and they were the jury. Denise clicked her tongue. "This is what happens when a man can't forgive," she said. Tiana guided Marcus to the couch and sat beside him, one hand on his knee like she was the model mother. Then she reached into a folder on the coffee table and slid a paper toward me. "Sign this," she said. I didn't touch it. "What is it?" "A temporary agreement," she replied, wiping her face like she was exhausted from carrying everyone. "Just until things calm down. You're not thinking straight. You're unstable. So I'll handle the accounts, pay the bills, manage the money. It's safer." Harold nodded as if it was obvious. "Do it," he said, "for the boy." The paper shook slightly in Tiana's hand. Her eyes stayed wet, but there was something sharper underneath. Strategy. A trap dressed up as concern. Marcus looked at me, confused. I pulled my phone out and opened the voice recorder without letting anyone see my screen. "I'll read it first," I said evenly. "I'm not signing anything I haven't reviewed." Tiana's face tightened for a second before she forced another sob. "Malik, why are you making this so hard?" I didn't answer. I took the paper, folded it once, and slid it into my pocket. Then I walked out to the front porch, shut the door behind me, and sat down on the top step with my phone still recording, staring at the yard like it was just another day, while inside, my son's life was being negotiated like a debt. My phone buzzed the next morning while I was packing Marcus's lunch. Peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, a bottle of water. Normal things. That was the only way I could keep my hands steady, by doing what fathers do. Unknown number. I stepped away from the counter and answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, quiet and strained. "Malik, it's Claire, Ryan's wife." I didn't say anything right away. I let her fill the space. "I know I shouldn't be calling you," she continued, "but I need you to hear me. I need to show you something." My jaw tightened. "What is it?" "Proof," she said. "Not just what happened, more than that." A pause. "He's been doing things behind my back for months," she added, "and I think he's been using you." The word using landed like a weight. I stared at Marcus's lunchbox and imagined my name on a credit card I never asked for, my paycheck tied to some plan that didn't include me. "Where?" I asked. "There's a little park near Piedmont," she said. "I can meet you in an hour." "All right," I replied. I hung up, finished packing, and drove Marcus to school. He didn't talk much. He kept staring out the window, chin tucked down like he was trying to disappear. I wanted to say 1,000 things, but I didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep yet. After drop-off, I drove straight into the city. Claire was already sitting on a bench when I got there. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were puffy, and she kept scanning the walkway like she expected Ryan to pop out from behind a tree. A folder sat on her lap, gripped with both hands. I sat on the other end of the bench, leaving space between us, not out of distance, out of respect. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, voice cracking on the last word. "Just show me," I answered. She nodded and opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages between Ryan and Tiana. I didn't read every word, but I saw enough. Hearts, hotel names, plans, jokes about me like I was a piece of furniture in my own home. Claire flipped to a stack of receipts. Hotels in Buckhead, a couple restaurants I'd heard of but never cared to try. Dates lined up with nights I'd been on shift. "I found these in his work bag," she said, "and I found this." She slid a single sheet of paper toward me. It was a printout from an email, an application confirmation, my name on it, my address, my phone number, a credit application. Under income, it listed a figure close to my salary. Under employment, it had City of Atlanta Fire Rescue. My throat tightened. "I didn't do this," I said, more to myself than to her. Claire shook her head hard. "I know," she whispered, "because I saw him typing it once." He laughed. He said, "You were the perfect target. Stable job, good credit, a guy like Malik always pays." Those were his words. I didn't react. I didn't slam the folder shut. I didn't curse his name. My fingers just curled around the edge of the paper until it bent. The story snapped into place in my head like a lock turning. The storage key, the borrowing tools, the transfers, the inquiry. Tiana's push for me to sign that so-called temporary agreement. Denise and Harold helping her frame me as unstable. All of it wasn't just messy emotions. It was a strategy. Claire wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I looked at her then. She wasn't acting. She wasn't bargaining. She was a woman standing in the same wreckage I was in, except hers had been built by the same man. "You did the right thing," I said. She gave a shaky nod, then glanced away. "He's telling people you threatened him," she added. "He's telling people you're dangerous." That didn't surprise me. Lies travel fast when the truth has paperwork attached. I slipped the credit application into the folder and closed it. "Can I keep this?" I asked. "Yes," Claire said quickly. "Take it, use it, whatever you need." I stood up, the folder under my arm, and didn't say anything dramatic. No speeches, no vows, just a quiet, heavy focus. My phone was already in my hand as I walked across the grass. Ava answered on the second ring. "Tell me you've got something," she said. "I do," I replied, sliding into my car. "And it's worse than we thought." I started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed back toward Midtown with the folder on the passenger seat, like it was evidence from a fire that finally revealed who lit the match. I waited until Saturday because people stayed home on Saturdays. Lawns got cut, cars got washed, folks lingered outside like they owned the street. After a week of whispers, curiosity had turned into a hobby. Claire pulled into my driveway just after noon. She stepped out slowly, shoulders stiff, eyes tired. I pointed to the small camera I'd mounted near the garage. "It's recording," I told her. She nodded. "Good," she said. "I don't want my words twisted." Tiana watched from the front doorway, half hidden behind the frame. She held a tissue like a prop. Denise stood behind her with her arms crossed. Harold hovered near the hallway, pretending he wasn't listening. I didn't invite them outside. I didn't need their approval. Ryan showed up 5 minutes later, walking across the street like he was coming to borrow a ladder. He didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced him. "Man, you really doing all this?" he said, stopping near the edge of my driveway. "Stand right there," I said, keeping my voice even, "so the camera catches you." His eyes flicked toward the camera, and his jaw tightened. "This is between us," he muttered. "Two men can talk." "We're not talking," I replied. "We're clearing facts." He scoffed and raised his voice on purpose, for the neighborhood. "You locked us in that shed like we're criminals," he shouted. "That's unlawful restraint. I could sue you for that." Tiana took her cue immediately. "He's been terrifying me," she cried from the doorway. "He's controlling. He threatens me. He's not stable." Denise nodded dramatically, like she was witnessing proof. Ryan stepped closer, trying to fill the space with his body. "You think your badge makes you untouchable?" he said. "You're gonna lose everything if you keep playing tough." I didn't step back. I didn't raise my voice. I reached into the folder I'd been holding and pulled out a printed sheet. "This is a credit application," I said, holding it up. "In my name, with my job listed, with my income." Ryan blinked, just once, and it wasn't the blink of confusion. It was the blink of recognition. I kept going. "This is a credit inquiry alert from last week. This is the bank statement with transfers you two can't explain. And this," I pulled out another page, printed screenshots of Ryan's texts. "This is you saying I'm the perfect target because I always pay." For a second, Ryan's face tried to hold its shape. Then his mouth opened and nothing came out. Tiana's crying softened like she'd forgotten her lines. Claire's voice cut through the quiet. "Is this who you are?" she asked Ryan, shaking. "You're not just cheating, you're stealing. You're using another man's name to fund your life." Ryan's eyes flicked toward the street, toward the houses, toward the neighbors who'd started drifting closer. "That's not," he began. I lifted my phone. "Everything's been sent to my attorney," I said. "Fraud report filed. Credit frozen. Any contact from you after today goes through legal channels. No insults, no threats, just procedure." Ryan swallowed hard. His shoulders dropped a fraction, like his body finally realized there was no room left to bluff. Claire let out a broken laugh that sounded more like a sob. "You were really going to live off other people," she whispered. "You were really going to do that." I looked past them to the window upstairs. Marcus stood there, just barely visible behind the blinds, watching. I nodded once to myself, then turned toward the garage, walked inside, and grabbed the plastic bin from the shelf. The lid clicked shut when I locked it. When I carried it back out, Claire stepped aside without a word. Ryan stayed frozen, staring at the paperwork like it was a mirror he couldn't escape. I set the bin gently in the trunk of my SUV, climbed into the driver's seat, and started the engine while the driveway stayed quiet behind me. Traffic downtown moved slow that morning, like the whole city was in no rush to get anywhere important. I parked a few blocks from the Fulton County Courthouse and walked in with my attorney, Mr. Calloway, beside me. He was older, neat, calm, the kind of man who didn't waste words because he knew paperwork spoke louder. Inside, Tiana sat with her own lawyer and her parents. Denise's eyes darted around the room like she was hunting for allies. Harold kept his jaw tight, pretending pride could hold everything together. Tiana didn't look at me at first. When she finally did, her face carried that same wounded expression she'd practiced for the neighborhood. It didn't land the same here. Courtrooms didn't care about tears unless they came with facts. Mr. Calloway leaned toward me. "Stay steady," he said. "Let me do my job." I nodded. When the judge called our case, we stood. My name sounded different in that room, less like a person, more like a file. Tiana's attorney started with soft language: marriage, misunderstanding, stress. He tried to paint it like a messy season that could be corrected with counseling and time. He suggested I had overreacted and made things worse by bringing outsiders into it. Mr. Calloway didn't argue with feelings. He didn't attack her character. He opened a folder and slid documents forward. "Your Honor," he said, "we have evidence of adultery, unauthorized financial activity, and attempts at credit fraud under my client's name." No shouting, no drama. He referenced the credit inquiry, the transfers, the application in my name, the audio from the night in the storage room, the screenshots Claire provided, the fraud report number, the credit freeze confirmations, everything dated, everything organized. The judge looked down at the pages and then up at Tiana. "Mrs. Johnson," she asked, "did you apply for credit using your husband's information?" Tiana's lawyer tried to interrupt. The judge raised a hand. Tiana swallowed. Her lips trembled. I don't know," she said. "I didn't." Denise made a small sound behind her, a desperate gasp. Mr. Calloway stayed polite. "We also have the statement from the bank and the fraud department," he added. "An investigation has been opened." That word, investigation, changed the air. Denise stopped shifting. Harold's shoulders stiffened. Tiana's eyes widened, not in sadness, but in realization. She'd thought this was a marriage problem. She hadn't understood it was now a legal one. I didn't take pleasure in that. I simply watched it happen. The judge granted temporary orders that day. Separate accounts, no access to my credit. Clear guidelines on custody and visitation. I got primary custody during the week because of Marcus's school routine, with weekends arranged in a way that kept stability. The judge also ordered Tiana not to interfere with finances or contact my workplace. Outside, Denise cornered me as soon as we stepped into the hallway. "You can't do this," she hissed. "You're destroying her." I looked at her for a moment, then at Harold. "She did that," I said, and kept walking. Ryan's consequences didn't arrive in one dramatic crash. They came like bills, one after another. Claire filed for divorce. She also filed a report with the lender and gave them the same paperwork she gave me. His employer put him on leave while they looked into the fraud allegations. Then he got fired. A couple weeks later, I heard he'd been ordered to pay restitution tied to one of the accounts he tried to open. Not prison, not some movie ending, just the kind of pressure that doesn't let a man sleep. Tiana's world shrank too. People stopped inviting her places. Friends in the neighborhood stopped liking her posts. Even Denise stopped talking as loud, once she realized tears couldn't erase a fraud report. A month later, I moved into a small apartment in Decatur. 2 bedrooms, clean, simple. No storage room in the back. Marcus helped me carry boxes up the stairs. He didn't say much, but he didn't look as tense anymore either. That meant more than any court order. We went to Target that afternoon and bought a new comforter, a desk lamp, and a set of plates that didn't match. He picked out a cheap basketball hoop for the door. I paid and didn't flinch at the total. That night, after he fell asleep, I stood on the balcony for a few minutes and listened to cars pass on the street below. No one was calling me cold. No one was demanding I prove my love by sacrificing myself. I went back inside, checked that Marcus's door was cracked the way he liked it, turned off the living room light, and closed my own door without making a sound.